Good evening and welcome to our third annual TED Ed evening at Southside High School. My name is Christine Brown.
And I am Nicole Knorr.
And we are the advisors of the TED Ed Club. For those who are able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we begin, we want to thank both our central and high school administration for their support of the TED Ed Club at Southside High School. Special thanks to Mark Palmentary, Lauren Reed, Rob Lichter, Mel Lopez, and the Video Club for their technical support. Many thanks to Dr. Russ Dembin for his assistance in helping our speakers in preparation for tonight's talks. Also, special thanks to Anthony Capuccio for his assistance with the set. Most importantly, though, thank you to the talented students and faculty members who are taking part in this special evening.
Each year when we prepare for our TED Ed Night, we collaborate with students and experience an exciting journey of exploration, rich discussions, self-reflection, research, and development. Our students are filled with an energy of curiosity and excitement. Our students develop their talks by identifying ideas and concepts that they truly felt connected to and that they believed were worth sharing with you tonight. We are grateful to have been on this journey with some amazing students and faculty and are so very proud of their work. We are quite sure that you will also be as impressed as we are by our speakers and by tonight's presentation.
So we would now like to welcome to the red circle our first presenter, Connor Stack, with Balancing Fantasy with Truth.
Yikes, first speaker. All right, I want you to imagine that you're in a dark forest. It's the dead of night. You can barely see anything. Your eyes haven't really adjusted to the pale moonlight that's coming down from the canopy of trees above. There's a thin layer of mist down at your feet. And as you're walking through, you don't hear any sound whatsoever until there's the snap of a twig. And you whip around to see that there is torchlight, just light coming towards you along with footsteps. What do you do? That's a big part of life, just the question, what do you do? Now, I'm sure when I explained that scenario, you thought of something like that. A dark forest, obviously. Now, I want you to imagine another scenario. You're walking in the halls of a high school, and even though there are so many people around you, you can't help but just feel alone. That was a lot of what I felt going into high school my freshman and sophomore year. There were so many people around me. I had a good amount of friends, I'd like to say. We hung out a lot. But even though I was doing all of these things and hanging out with my friends and doing what teenagers did, there was still a part of me that felt like I was alone, especially in school. There was coursework I didn't really know how to do, and it was a little hard to reach out for help about it. So when the real world is a little disappointing, I did, as many others did, delve into our imaginations. And how I did that was with an incredibly nerdy board game called Dungeons & Dragons. If you've heard of Dungeons & Dragons, you know that it's dice and math and that it's so complicated and it's so much paper. But I loved it. I met with my friends every Sunday and we would just play out what we would do. I would give them the scenarios as a dungeon master. That's one player that tells the story, describes the world that they're in. I would voice different characters, put on way too many accents, and I would roll the dice. That's a huge part of D&D, rolling the dice that you see up there. You have the usual 6-sided one, the little cube, and then there's, 20-sided ones and 12-sided dice, and too many dice is what I'm trying to say here. There's way too many dice that you have to roll. But the main goal in Dungeons & Dragons is to roll a high number on one of these dice. Maybe you roll a high number trying to hit something with a club. Well, you hit it right on the head. Maybe you roll a low number trying to find out what kind of book you're reading. You don't understand what language it's in. It was one of those things that we just had so much fun with. We played out a bunch of adventures on Sunday, and it was really fun for all of us. It made us laugh, it made us really delve into our imaginations, and I had a great time with it. But as I kept playing every Sunday and making these scenarios and worlds that I came up with in my head, I started to kind of lose grip of where I was in the real world. I was so focused on what I was creating in these made-up worlds that I couldn't really focus on where I was in the moment. I was still failing a few classes. I wasn't really reaching out to some of my other friends as much as I wanted to. I didn't really care about my test grades or any grades in general. And as I kept going into freshman and sophomore year, I felt myself isolating myself more than I should have. And I had found that in my own brain, I had created a world for myself, a dungeon, so to speak, that I couldn't find a way out of. And because I didn't want to go ask for help, and I found it difficult to go to extra help, ask teachers, hey, what's on this test? Can I redo this assignment? Can I get my grade up? I just didn't have the care for it. And because I didn't have the care to go forward in high school, I didn't have much care in getting up from this dungeon at all. I stayed secluded in my own world, in my own mind. So, what would you do if you were in a dungeon of your own making and you just sat there and did nothing? Well, you'd do something, obviously, I'd hope. A lot of aspects went into the dungeon I had created for myself. Many twists and turns. There was no light at the end of the tunnel because there was no straight path. There was a lot of delving and expedition and exploring that I had to do in order to make it to the end of my so-called metaphorical dungeon. And part of that started in my junior year, where I started really branching out into things that I now love doing, like speaking on a stage, whether it be in theater or this now, or maybe helping out with the morning news and the video club for some of their shoots of our red and blue competition or just some of our sports games in general. I started reaching out to more and more groups, and I found that as I kind of expanded myself into more groups and more topics, I found myself moving through my dungeon that I'd planned out so much in my head. Sure, I didn't find an awesome sword made of fire or a spell book that let you shoot out fireballs from your fingertips, but I did find a whole new group of friends. And I found that I could do all of it while creating those scenarios in my head. We still met basically every Sunday. I still had time for everything in my life, everything that I didn't even know was possible, because I just started trying more. And eventually, by my senior year, even earlier, I had found something I'd wanted to see for a long time, the light at the end of my dungeon. And I was able to get out of it, which was great. I'm able to talk with my friends, and I'm also able to focus on everything that comes with school. I started passing all my classes, passing my tests, and I actually started going to extra help and saying, hey, what's on this review sheet, because I have no idea how to do algebra, because, who does? But in any case, I had found the exit to my dungeon. And even now, as I'm going on to a whole nother adventure in college, I think I'm ready with pens, paper, and, of course, just way too many dice, as I said. And a huge part of what I want everyone to learn is that you need to balance your life. You can let your imagination run wild, but you have to balance how you work with that. You can create huge monsters of myth that you didn't thought were possible, but at the same time, you also have to conquer things that you didn't know were possible in yourself. That's what I'd just like to share with you. So thank you very much.
I would now like to welcome to the Red Circle, Chesler Dortley with Leaving It All Behind.
Have you ever left behind everything you have ever known for a life you have only dared to dream of? I have learned that behind every dream there is a hidden harsh reality. Have you ever had to look back and realize that a house does not always mean a home? I come from Haiti. Haiti is best known for its horrors, struggles, instability, famine, and hardship, to name a few. This is the first impression people have of me when they ask me my nationality. It is useless to try to convince them otherwise. I have to prove that I deserve to be here among you and that people don't have to be scared of me. Although in my eyes there is still hidden fear. The blood of my brave ancestors run through my veins. I am the living proof that nobody is the story of where they come from, but rather where they belong. I belong here, right where I am. I cannot clear the resume of my hometown, but you can see through me that there is pure harmony in my country. Although the first thing that comes to mind when I say I'm Haitian is brutality. I am proud. I am proud to be a part of it. I am proud. I'm just proud. I am proud to be of a family that does not erase the fact that my skin tells a different story. I am proud. I am proud of a family that where resilience intelligence is part of my heritage. My name is Chesler, and this is my story. I left home, but I will never forget my roots. When I left AD, it only took me one step into the airplane and one step out. And there I was standing in the land of America. Little did I know that these two steps will change my life for years to come. I had seen too many closed doors, too many opportunities vanish before they even appeared. I made it my goal to chase something bigger. Security, education, a name, a future, something that is not offered to you in Haiti. And there, I'm standing on the land where dreams come true. It was up to me to decide if my dream was worth fighting for. And I decided that it was. I was not making this commitment just for me, but also for those who will come after me. I believe that we can truly do anything that we set our mind to. On the other hand, I did not realize that stepping onto that plane was giving my consent to leave my home behind. They never told me that no matter how much safety and opportunity I find here in America, no matter how comfortable I get over the years, no matter how well I adapt to the food, no matter how my accent will change, America will never be my home. Because home is not just a place, it's a feeling of belonging. And though I am blessed to be a part of a community that has my back, that does not erase the fact that my skin tells a different story. Before I even start thinking about dream, I will have to remember that my place is not actually here. I have to fight with every strength of my position. I have to work harder than anybody, harder than ever. I realized this when my dad taught me how to drive a car. He was not just teaching me how to steer the wheels, but how to reach my destination. His life here on earth ended. However, he had left me the most precious gift he had owned, his wisdom. I learned that driving isn't just about getting somewhere. It's about knowing how to take control. He did not just teach me how to hit the brakes, he taught me about life. So when I came to America for the first time, I had to learn how to drive by not just steering the car down a different road, but also down a different path in life and a different house. I cannot afford to stop. I don't have that option, so I keep moving, keep climbing one mountain at a time. Who would I thought I had to study in a different language than my own, surrounded by people who do not understand where I came from? I will not forget how fortunate I am to get a good education. Many do not realize that, and education is not given to everyone. Be grateful that your teacher knows your name. Be grateful that you do not have to fight for a seat in the front row. Be grateful that you get to be you and express yourself with no fear in school. Today, I shared with you about my life, the person I am today, what I am fighting for, and the person I was before. One of my favorite quotes, you cannot be great without the greatness of others. If I am to be great, I couldn't be without the help of this organization. The people that help me grow, that remind me every day that I can do anything and to be a better person. In closing, I would like to remind you of something. Every good or bad experience is a privilege to help us grow. Be sure to learn from them. Thank you.
Right. Right. Next, we would like to invite Lucy Frayne to the red circle. Tonight, Lucy's talk is titled, "Every Voice Should Be Heard, Every Person Should Be Seen."
We're lucky to live in a world that shines light on the dark issues, a world that people are confident to speak up on what they know is wrong. A common misconception about feminism is women above men, this above that, putting everything against each other, and that's simply not true. Feminism is an advocacy for women's rights on the basis that everyone is equal. We've been fighting for years, for decades, and even for a century, and every step is a new accomplishment. However, it's not enough to settle for good enough, and we have to keep fighting until it's all equal. When I was in 5th grade, I had a pretty unusual experience. I spent my first few years in elementary school at Riverside, kindergarten through 3rd grade, and I moved. In 4th and 5th grade, I spent at Covert. And I ran for class president. And trust me, I know class president in 5th grade doesn't mean that much. But I was so excited, And I was sitting and I was thinking so hard, what can I bring to the table? What can I do different? And what can I say unique to others? And I came up with the idea, vending machines. At Riverside, they had vending machines, but at Covert, they didn't. So I was like, well, if I propose this, maybe kids who, don't have a snack and have an extra $1 to have the chance to get a snack. I was so excited. I got up on stage. I had my speech in my hand, the lights were in my eyes, and a microphone right in front of me, and I gave that speech to the school. And I lost, which was okay. We grow up learning, we win some, you lose some. And eventually, over some time, I started to notice something different about the school. A vending machine. Ha ha ha, a vending machine. And I didn't get the credit for it. Everyone started giving the credit to the guy who won, and that's okay. I mean, it's just a vending machine. It's not the end of the world, I guess, but that wasn't the end to stories like that. So many women and so many people have stories like that where they're not credited and they're not represented in their ideas. This was a meeting in 2025. At this meeting, there was maternity and reproductive care discussed. Do you notice something about this picture? Or maybe something that's not there? Women are not there. There's no woman, and there's no people of color. There's no representation. So here I am today, standing up on stage with my speech in my hand and the lights glaring in my eyes and a microphone right in front of me, and I just want even one person to hear me, and that would be more than enough for me, and more that I can ever ask for. Thank you.
I'm very proud to announce our next speaker for this TED Night, Mr. Herb Weiss, who will be presenting his final TED Talk at Southside High School, Opportunity.
I believe it's the right one. Okay, see if I got this right. Hey everybody, my name is Mr. Weiss. Tonight I'm going to talk about doors. Doors are big and beautiful. They can be bold. They can be green, blue, red. They can be transparent. You can look through them. Doors are absolutely amazing. They're the gateway to the unknown. Be careful though. We walk through a door and we don't like what we see. We feel like we get locked in a box. But I'm going to let you know something. And excuse me because my glucose monitor is going crazy. Sorry about that. I guess I shouldn't have had that piece of cake before. Okay. But back to the doors. Okay, doors can lock you in a box, but I want everybody to know here that you can always walk it back. You can go back through the door you came from. You're allowed to take a peek through your door. Do I like what I see? Doors are interesting because eventually you're going to find a door that's going to fit you, and you're going to walk through it. But I digress. Let me tell you a story about me. The story of me is very simple. I was dyslexic as a kid and had a horrible time reading. Now you got to remember that when I grew up, I was in elementary school in the 1960s. They didn't have the services they had now. So what happened was I would sit there and look at words and not understand anything. It was heartbreaking. My parents were told, you know what, maybe your son is not fit for college. But through a lot of hard work, I persevered and got a high school diploma. But I'm going to share with you, as a chemistry teacher, in high school, I never took a science class, never took biology, and never took chemistry. And you could say, how did I graduate? And they had general diplomas back then. And life goes on. I became a truck driver. I walked through a door, never went to college, but I got married, had kids, and I bought a house. The door was really a nice door until it stops. Well, I was out one morning, and I was making the delivery, and slipped on the ice. And accidents happen, and I was in the hospital for 5 days and had reconstruction on my knee. Uh-oh, I felt the door closing on me. Maybe I can't go back to driving a truck. I had a door to look at, and I said, I'm going to try to go back to school. But accidents happen. I went back to school. And lo and behold, I had to take a science class, and I figured I'd take chemistry. I took the wrong chemistry class. I took the chemistry class for chemistry majors. Once I was in that door, I looked around, sort of embraced it, and said, this room fits me perfect. 4 years, graduate. Now, I'm about to leave that room, and I have a couple of more doors to look at. What is it that we do? Well, I chose the door that terrified me as a kid. I chose the door that would put me back into the classroom. Lo and behold, here I am as a chemistry teacher. But wait a minute. As a chemistry teacher, we're not supposed to have teachers that never took science in high school. But I remembered back in high school what it was like. And it made me the better chemistry teacher. That made me the better person. That made me the better at what I did. Patience and understanding. Because people back then didn't have it for me. Subsequently, when I think about it, I'm about to retire. I had well over 2,000 students walking through my door now. And when I think about it, I've had students who were winners in all kinds of national science competitions. I work with students with disabilities. I have taught students how to understand their life around them with respect to the natural world. I have created doors for students that made them feel comfortable, all because of the door that I was put or was pushed through when I was younger. So what I want to tell everybody is this: back to doors. Understand that every door you go through is going to bring you to a new place. And that new place just may not be the place you want to be. And that's okay, because you can always walk back through that door. Don't get locked in a box. Choose one that fits yourself. And look, and eventually when you walk through that door, you're going to find the right door. And you're going to be where you want to be. And I'm going to close it out. Doesn't mean that you have to be there for the rest of your life. You walk through that door, and you're in that room until it doesn't fit you anymore. Thank you.
All right. Next, we'd like to invite up Haruka Brown, not related, maybe related, Haruka Brown with The Measurement of Life.
Sugar Brown, and I'm a 9th grader here. I kind of feel like a bit standing out because mine isn't as like deeply like theirs, but either way. So, I guess everyone has probably played the game Would You Rather sometime in their life. If not, it's a game where you basically choose between one or two options. Let's have a test run. For example, would you rather want dogs or cats? So raise your hand for dog. And now raise your hand for cat. See, it's a pretty simple game. Now, what I'm gonna ask you now is taking this simple concept and making it slightly a bit more complicated. So what would you do if I asked you, would you rather live your life faster, the way how we normally live, or longer? So you probably are thinking, what does she mean by that? So when I say when you live life faster, basically, biologically, your body is forced to live faster. So, for instance, this is a picture of a couple of toddlers as we would be right now, but in the timeline of living faster, you would be maybe 1 year old already, and you would be able to talk, write, interact with everyone. So, when you're 18, you would be similar to a middle-aged adult. And by the time you're 50, you would be well over to your deathbed. So you may be thinking, well, why would I want to pick something where I die in 50 years? Well, the pros of this life is it is almost always economically stable. You have a very high IQ, so you can basically choose whatever life path you want to. So if you want to be a doctor, you can be a doctor. If you want to be a teacher, you can be a teacher. But now, when I mean when you would live your timeline normally is exactly as that. When you're 3 to 4 years old, you're the toddler. When you're 40, you're middle-aged. And when you're 100, well, maybe some may say 80, but around 100 you would be on your deathbed. But this is simple. You go to school, college, get a job, continue living till retirement. And when I say a timeline of living life slowly, you can live up to 150 years. The only downside is that your entire body is biologically forced to age much slower. So remember the picture of the toddlers? You are 10 years old in that picture. The middle-aged people, you're 70. And when you're about to die, you are 150. And you might be thinking, oh wow, that sounds wonderful. I can live such a long life. But not only is your body biologically forced to grow at a much slower rate, but also your IQ is drastically lower than what our normal IQ is, which forces you to learn things much slower. But you can spend a lot of good chunk of time between working and you can travel around the world so you can appreciate the world more. But the reason I decided to do this TED Talk is that I often see many kids, especially on like social media, where they want to grow up faster. They want to become that adult much quicker. For example, oftentimes, if you've heard of the Sephora kids, then you know, but basically they are pre-teens who go to these makeup stores where they don't need those products and they're way too overpriced for a 10-year-old to be wearing. But it also made me wonder, what would happen if you were forced to live faster? Would you want that? Would you want to continue to live faster? Or what would happen if you're forced to live your life slower? Would you rather take the time and live much slower? Well, my ending for today is, would you rather live life faster, live life normally, or live life slower? Thank you so much. I hope you have a wonderful night.
Next to the red carpet, I would like to welcome Eniola Bongboshe. With stubbornness is not only a vice, but it is a virtue.
My name is Eniola, and in my preteen years, one of my parents' common phrases was, "Eniola, you're being too stubborn." Eniola, stubbornness, the sin of stubbornness is like that of witchcraft. Eniola, stubbornness is not good, and it might ruin you. But funnily enough, I've come to accept stubbornness as what it is. In true stubborn manner, I refuse to change. My parents are stubborn. No, like, hate to them or anything, but it's the truth. People before me were stubborn in both my parents' sides. It takes stubbornness and grit to live centuries and centuries and overcome things like famine, things like genocide, things like imperialism by another country. It takes stubbornness to keep your culture, and it takes stubbornness to keep your language growing. As someone who is currently 18, I remember vividly in 5th grade in another school district where a teacher told me that I will never go to a good college, I wouldn't even go to a college, period. I remember back then I didn't really care about schoolwork because I knew that middle school and high school was when it really mattered. And I watched too many movies about, really academically competitive institutions where students will sabotage the works of other students, and I was really scared that that would happen to me. So I didn't really put in that much effort. And I also lived in a very different place where I was born, and it took a lot of getting used to and to be able to navigate the world around me. Hearing my teacher say that was very crushing, but it also fueled the stubbornness in me, because everything about me, the reason I'm alive is due to stubbornness and grit. My parents probably wouldn't have gotten married if my mom wasn't stubborn enough to marry my father. My mom's parent told her that my dad was too poor and she could not afford the life that she was meant to live. When my parents got married, my mom was also told by a relative that their marriage would not last 5 years. I'm currently 18, and they've been married happily for 20 years. When I was younger, I was also told, predicted that I probably may not live very long, because as a young child, I kept on feeling sick and ill, and I kept on having to go to hospitals a couple of times, and I was told that I would not make it. Even when my mom was pregnant with me, I was also told I probably would not make it. But here I am, 18 years old, living and breathing, healthy and happy. The reason I'm creating this TED Talk today is because oftentimes people look upon stubbornness as something that's bad, just like how they look at things like tears as something that's bad. But someone can cry tears of joy, just like how someone can be positively stubborn. Things like happiness also can be terrible. If someone is always happy, then I don't think that's really good for their mental health. I think the stages of grief, sadness, and happiness are all stages that we need to have to live and to be able to understand the world around us. And I also believe that stubbornness is one of those steps in living. As someone who loves history and loves to know random facts, I'm always inspired by the people, especially women and people of color, who come before me. Their resilience and grit and stubbornness in times where it seemed like they would never achieve anything inspires me every day. I think about the people at Nat Turner who carried out the Nat Turner Rebellion way back when. And I think about how, due to that rebellion, there were stricter slave laws in the United States. And I thought about what would I do if that was me, if I lived in that time period. Would I move on? Did I have the stubbornness to keep on going? Would I just accept my fate and live? But thank God I did not live then, because people who lived then took steps to enhance the United States of America. They took steps to afford me the chance to be able to receive an education as a woman and as a person of color. The resilience of women in the suffrage movement have given me the ability to talk and argue with men who are older than me and have so much experience than me because my voice matters. And my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, and the parents of my great-grandparents, the lineage, I think about how they would walk miles to get to school and how they would stay and work at the farm right after they trekked from like 5 miles to school and like more probably back home, and then come back from the home and go to the farm and work day and night. I think about how through their resilience, I have the ability to learn my language, to wear my traditional clothes. My culture has not faded out, even though there has been a lot of opposition to stop and quench and modernize them. And with that stubbornness, I am happy to be able to speak to you about their stubbornness. I am happy to be able to converse with you about the people that came before me and their stubbornness. And I hope that as I grow older, I never forget how good stubbornness really is and how stubbornness has afforded me and the people before me the luxury to live, the luxury to become. Thank you.
So next we have Theodore Moore with the train system.
Hi everybody, how are we tonight? So, as the title says, how did a roadblock lead me to my destination? See, now, you might not know this, I might seem typical, but I'm also a survivor. Of what? What could this kid, 17 years old, have possibly survived that changed his life? That image right up there, you have your brain. You have mine up here on the right. Now, with this brain up on the right, that is what we consider hydrocephalus. It's known as water in the brain. To keep it simple, I like to think of it as a train system. Okay? You have your route 1, you have your route 2. Now, with that being said, if you have a blockage, like said, you have to figure out a new way to get to your destination. We all, given that we live 5 minutes from a train station, we all open up our MTA app, we go, let me see if I can figure out a different way to to get to my destination. Now, that right up there is your new that right there is your new road. That is what we call a shunt. That is your new passage. That is your new pathway in order to get to your destination. That, ladies and gentlemen, is me. That is right before I had my shunt. That is right after. That is before. That is after. Now, like I said, roadblocks, they can be tricky. How did I overcome them? Except when it comes to shunts, they can malfunction quite often, more often than not. And we have to figure out a way to do so. And when we do, it feels great, but they constantly fail. They constantly malfunction. And those are more roadblocks that we have to overcome over and over and over again. And because of that, that is why I am today who I am. Now, I was known as this kid growing up. All right, yeah, I know. You see? You see the resemblance? I know, a little messed up, but it's true, all right? Stick with me. All right. Now, again, roadblocks. As you saw before, you could tell I've had a few roadblocks. If it wasn't for those roadblocks, I would not be who I am today. That is me seeing your photos, who I am today. Thank you.
I would now like to welcome Nona Sedrakian. Across the Ocean, a story of fear, courage, and finding home.
Imagine this. You're a 17-year-old girl who has never been out of her small country. And one day you just decide to cross an ocean without any family or friends, just to get the high school experience that the American teenagers have. You know, the ones that they show in the movies. The Friday night football matches, the school dances, even the yearbooks or the school buses. That girl is me. Hi, I'm Nona Sedrakian, and I'm an exchange student from a little country called Armenia. Albania? Romania? Argentina? No, Armenia. And honestly, I'm not even surprised when people tell me that they don't know where it is, because it's part of my job as an exchange student to come here and tell people about my country and bring a little piece of Armenia with me. But today, I'm not here to tell you a geographic lesson or to be your geography teacher. I'm here to tell you how I got here, what inspired me, what challenges and fears have shaped me to become like this today that I am. So let me take you back. There's this program called FLEX, Future Leaders Exchange Program, which gave me and 34 more Armenian teens the opportunity to study in the United States and get the high school experience that they have always dreamt about. I found out about this program completely by chance. One day, I was walking from school home with my friend, and we were just chit-chatting about how cool it would be to study in the United States together. We would go like thrifting, and we would go to prom. We would be in a yearbook club together. And a man overheard us, and he came up to us and he said that his granddaughter did just that, but with FLEX. And that tiny moment changed everything for me and my friend. We heard about it, and then we decided to try. We applied to that program alongside 3,000 other Armenian teens. But the first time, I wasn't selected. My friend was, though. And they told me that my perspectives and life experience wasn't good enough, and then I was heartbroken because of that. So my friend who got in to the program and who was coming to United States, she looked at me and she told me, you always achieve what you set your mind to. Try again. I listened to her and I did. So the next year, I applied again, stronger, smarter, and more determined. After months of tests, essays, interviews, and everything that I did, I waited and waited, and then one day I was sitting in a class. I got a call. The caller said, "Congratulations, you're a FLEX finalist. You're going to United States." And that moment felt unreal. I was having goosebumps and stuff. But the truth is, coming to United States was just the beginning for me, because everything started after that, and I didn't know what I was going to face. My first host family was a challenge for me, a little bit too much of a challenge for me, to be honest. At first, I thought I could fix things by being like, I'm going to talk to them more, I'm going to be helping them more, but sometimes people aren't just the right fit for each other. And that's okay, because that's how the life is. I found myself struggling at that time. I found myself being really sick, homesick. I was depressed, even depressed. I couldn't sleep one night without crying because I thought I'm not going to get the high school experience because I'm just in this family and it's not helping me. But in that moment, somebody truly special for me stepped in. And that was my history teacher, Miss Corveshi. After what she heard about what happened, she didn't just offer her support to me. She opened her home for me. And she and her family opened their home for me to stay during my winter break. And in these 2 weeks, when I stayed with them, I created a really strong bond with them that I still carry with me, and I still will carry with me when I go back to Armenia. I still talk to them. I'm really close with everybody, and I really love them. But the time came for me to come back to Southside High School because I didn't want to leave from here. I didn't want to leave this place that already felt like home for me, because I found friends, I found teachers that I loved, I found classes that I wanted to go to, and I was just scared to move to another school. So Ms. Corveshi stood out and she tried to find a family in Rockville Center which will help me be myself, which will help me grow and be comfortable and still come to Southside High School. That's how I met my current host parents, Carol and Christian. And let me tell you, those people are the best people ever. I love them so much. When I moved to their house, I started being myself and I felt more comfortable, more confident. I grew because they made me do that. They helped me with everything. They given me a space to laugh, to cry, to grow, to be myself. They've let me make mistakes and learn from my mistakes. And honestly, that's how it should be. That's what my exchange year, I think, should be like. So my experience as an exchange student from Armenia hasn't been anything but easy. I have faced loneliness, I have faced culture shock, I was homesick, I faced doubt in myself. But at the same time, I've also found my resilience. I found joy, love, and I found home in the most unexpected places that I could ever think of. I have made friendships that matter. I have had teachers who believed in me before I even could believe in myself. I have found a second family that chose me, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And now I walk through the hallways of Southside High School, not just as the Armenian exchange student, but as Nona, a person who dared to dream, who dared to try, and who is still learning and still growing. So here's what I've learned. Taking a risk isn't about being perfect. It's about you being brave. It's about taking the step even when your legs are shaking. It's about losing yourself and finding yourself again. It's about letting people in when your heart is scared to do so. If there is one thing that I want you to remember from my TED Talk today, it's this. Don't let your fear make your decisions. Let your courage guide you. Say yes to the unknown. Say yes to trying again. And when life throws you a no, just look back at it and say, try me. Thank you.
Last but not least, we invite Rory Zuckerman to the red circle.
Rory will be talking with us tonight about collecting pieces. Come on up, Rory.
Hello. Imagine that you have a puzzle. You think this puzzle is fully solved and you understand it completely. Well, here's a new piece. You take this piece and you put it in your puzzle, and it fits perfectly. How did it do that? What happens if I give you more pieces? And what does this mean for the puzzle? I'll tell you. When I was in 3rd grade, I was so convinced that I wanted to be an electrician, because obviously everyone has it all figured out when you're in 3rd grade. Eventually, I got a little bit older and I discovered what an electrical engineer was, and that was my new passion. I'd always loved math, and it just seemed like the best possible choice for me. When my sister was touring colleges, I was around 6th grade, and one of the colleges we visited was the Rochester Institute of Technology. Now, when we took that tour after, I just felt like I belonged there. I was so convinced that at 12 years old, I wanted to be an electrical engineer and go to RIT. Now, that's not really how it's been working out. When I got to high school, I joined the Southside High School Wind Ensemble. This group really opened my eyes to how much music can be a part of your life. When I got there, the pieces were all much more challenging than I'd ever played in middle school or elementary school or anything like that. I realized that maybe music is something that I can be passionate about and that I can strive to be successful in. And that puzzle piece has led me to this. I play all of these instruments, I'd like to say proficiently. And music has evolved into really my main passion. And now I'm starting to look at schools for music education so I can try and show other kids that music is something that you can be very passionate about. This past summer, I took a trip with my age group from a Jewish summer camp to Europe on a Jewish tour. We went to Czech Republic, Austria, and Poland. Now, on this trip, we did visit a couple of concentration camps. And I won't give you the usual depressing story of how those concentration camps went and functioned or anything like that. But this was a very powerful experience for me because it made me feel a deeper connection to my heritage and my people. This puzzle piece taught me how to get more confidence and feel really connected to a community, and has made me be able to do more things than maybe I would have before. So I encourage you to go out and find those new puzzle pieces, try those new experiences. When I was just in 3rd grade, my puzzle was very small, say like the smallest size, 24 pieces. But it's evolved, and now I have thousands of pieces. And I encourage you to do the same. Look for as many puzzle pieces as possible, and don't let the fear of a new one stop you from getting it. It might just change your life. As for me, I'll always be looking for the next one. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's TED Ed program. We hope that you enjoyed our student and faculty talks and hope that you leave feeling inspired to identify your passions and ideas worth sharing. Good night, and thank you.